revenue sharing language. After hearing about this nice simple version of Interledger as make sending payments as straightforward as sending an email, I thought I need a better elevator pitch. So my elevator pitch is to make creating a revenue sharing agreement as easy as writing a grocery list. Now, if you don't know what a revenue sharing agreement is yet, that's fine. I'll come on to that very soon. But the principle is you have a very simple list of who needs to be paid, when, in what order. So if tonight we all go to the bar, we end up creating an amazing song, we record it. First, we have to settle the bar tab, and Alex has to get repaid for that, and then we split the rest of it. Everyone who was in the bar singing shares 50%. The UN World Food Programme gets the other 50%. But before I kind of go into the details of exactly how that works and why we're doing it, I want to talk about an industrialist businessman who we actually discussed a bit yesterday. He's kind of in the presence of this conference. He was brilliant at everything he did, changed the world in countless ways. When he encountered a certain kind of media, however, he sort of created such a backlash that it changed the face of media as we know it. So I'm talking about Mr. Edison. And in 1908, he set up the Motion Picture Patent Company. I don't know if this means anything to anybody here. And no show of hands? OK, that's great. I'm speaking to a room who either doesn't know or is pretending they don't know, which is great. So Edison bought up patents in movie cameras. So at the turn of the century, if you wanted to shoot a film in North America, you had to pay a license to the Edison Trust. So effectively, production slowed down to a halt, and most of the film distributors and exhibitors, they started importing films. So he was like, OK, well, then I better buy up the patents for the projectors as well. So the MPPC was an end-to-end monopoly that controlled the production and the distribution of movies in this country. And as a result, there was a kind of, as you can imagine, a bit of a backlash. So this guy, Carl Laemmle, he had about 300 lawsuits with the trust, battling away. In New Jersey, which is where the MPPC were also based, he set up the Independent Picture Company. And this is where the phrase indies come from, and independence in the film industry. They were known by the trust as outlaws and pirates, also where that kind of concept starts. This guy, Adolf Zucker, he had this big idea, maybe people don't want to just watch 10, 15-minute films. Maybe we can do 4-reel, 5-reel, 6-reel films. He heard that France had made this big production about the life of Queen Elizabeth I. It was going to be a 6-reel film. He put $18,000 in it, which he had to get back somehow. So he went to the MPPC. They kept him waiting 3 hours and then said to him, nah, nothing in features. It's not going to go anywhere. So they kind of really didn't just like charge. They also kind of dictated the sort of films that got made and they got shown. He actually funded it anyway, and when they showed it, it became the first film premiere when he opened it on Broadway. William Fuchs, another guy, another one of the rebels. And these 4 brothers who were soap salesmen from Pittsburgh. No, Pittsburgh? Oh. Pennsylvania. So they basically got to the point where they just couldn't handle this patent oversight anymore, and they fled as far away as they could from the lawyers on the East Coast to the West. And these guys set up Warner Brothers, Fuchs set up Fox, Zucker set up Paramount, and Laemmle set up Universal. The rebels won. And, the empire was defeated, and the world would never be the same again. We've, ever since then, been living in a kind of post-Star Wars utopia. And, move forward to the end of the century, and Hollywood also becomes known for its issues as well. You've got Hollywood accounting. I don't know if this phrase means anything to anyone, but it's basically the process by which a profitable film isn't profitable. Very famous example was in a court case. Winston Groom, the writer of the novel Forrest Gump, was promised 3% of the profits. The film made cost 55 million, made 678 million at the box office. You'd think that might be profit. It made a loss. It was loss-making. Return of the Jedi, back to the Battle of the Empire and the Rebels. Again, loss-making. In fact, David Prowse, the actor behind the king of the empire, himself said, he'd get these occasional letters from Lucasfilm saying, "We regret to inform you, Return of the Jedi has never entered a profit. We've got nothing to send you." So, Return of the Jedi, loss-making film, a total disaster of a movie. So, when the web first arrived at the end of last century, I think there was, in a lot of people's visions, maybe an alternative way of doing things. Maybe the web would. By the way, I'm a frustrated filmmaker, so this is going to be full of like crummy animations which have gone through Keynote and then been exported to PowerPoint, so they get an extra layer of crumminess that I can kind of blame on the software, but really it's me. So this kind of led to this question: what if the web could empower filmmakers and free them from studio empires? And that's what kind of inspired the creation of Netribution, which was the website I set up with another friend. We were both studying film together, and another friend who was working as assistant at a film distributor's. It launched on December 31st, 1999, and our first news story was that AOL was going to buy Time Warner. We kind of went through a whole series of trying to get money, and eventually, at an event called First Tuesday, you'd gone from asking for like £60,000 to 35 million drunkenly, and the guys from Enron were like, "This is great, this is exactly what we want." So I tell by that laugh, at least some people remember Enron. So thankfully, we were like, this is going to be great. We dropped out of our film degree, and 2 weeks later, the dot-com crash came. But we decided to somehow sort of carry on. We did a weekly film magazine on netribution.co.uk, ran for 99 issues, covering indie filmmakers' concerns, and at the same time having a bunch of resources. So from this, then, one of our most popular sections was actually a book on film finance. Sorry, not a book. This is a book on film finance. It came from one of the most popular sections on our site, which was trying to explain to indie filmmakers how funding works. How do you get your film funded? And it was a strange, mysterious art. There were books, but they cost hundreds of pounds. This was like 22 bucks, I guess, in dollar terms. The next book was 25, and then the final book, which came out just after, like a year into YouTube, that was a kind of global book, and we tried to cover the film finance scene in 30 or 40 countries. And in the course of making these books, we sold about 11,000 copies. We sort of sustained ourselves through doing them. I kind of started to understand what was going on in this so-called Hollywood accounting. So we come back to another example, Harry Potter. 300 million budget, 942 million at the box office. It's loss-making, right? Now, I hope I'm not going to get into trouble. This was leaked. This has been published on a bunch of websites, but this is the Warner Brothers sort of revenue payout for Harry Potter, and it sort of breaks down where the money's going. You see here, above that, you've got the defined gross, 600 million. Here, a distribution fee's been taken out, 200 million. Here, there's a 200 million in distribution costs. So the costs are taken out after the fee. And then here, you've got like the money that Warner Brothers has lent itself to make the film and the interest on top of that. So altogether, you get a situation which actually probably was in everybody's contracts. It just depends where you were in the agreement, whether you're going to get a profit. It's not profitable if you're getting your money at the very bottom of this waterfall. But if you're Warner Brothers, who's distributor, or the debtor, it's totally profitable. It just depends where you are in the recruitment schedule. And this is the kind of the key thing that people who are sort of new to film don't really necessarily know, that studio films will control finance production. Very normally they control distribution, and often they control exhibition for the same film. And this is known as single-party finance from one person. Indie films separate production, distribution, exhibition. It's also known as multi-party finance because it's from multiple places. So here you've got a classic indie film, multi-party film financing agreement. At the very bottom, actually, we will probably better work from the top because this is the easiest stuff. The soft money is like tax breaks, grant money from the National Film Board of Canada or the British Film Institute or CNC in France. You then get equity from investors. You get pre-sales for rights. You get deferrals from different actors and producers who say, we like this project, we'll put the money in kind. We will work for you for free. And then usually at the very end, you'll get the bank gap financing who said, okay, you put together this deal, you've got 90% of the money, we'll put in the final little bit. It means that the film then comes into profit earlier because the pre-sales don't need repaying, the soft money, grants, the tax breaks, they don't need repaying. You get recoupment at 70%. And that means your equity investors, they can start to see a profit share, and the actor and the director who also kind of maybe deferred their fee, they get a share. So this is it seems really complex, but this is actually a really simplified version of a typical film distribution agreement. And indie films, because they want to go back to the investors for their next film, generally want to give the investors some profit share. They want to say, this film was a good investment, come back again for our next film. Okay, so that's history of film and how indie filmmaking works, and I'm kind of sorry that I'm throwing this at you on Sunday afternoon after everything else you've been trying to learn. I'm now going to go into comfort zone. We've got web monetization arrives, and suddenly it opens up this question. It's a kind of exciting technology, money streaming from a wallet to content producers. It's the direct link between the person paying, the audience, and the creator that has been absent for a lot of the time in between. It gets really exciting, but then you have this question, who exactly is being monetized? Is it the creator whose work is hosted on the site? Is it the person sharing the creator's work? Is it the platform? And this kind of, the more I thought about it, well, okay, so the creator's your producer, the person sharing the influencer is the distributor, the platform is the exhibitor. And as we know from film, there is powers depending on who's in control of those bits of the process. In an ideal situation, you split it. So I'm here using an example of the probabilistic revenue sharing builder from the web monetization ecosystem. So I don't know if has anyone used probabilistic revenue sharing? Well, yeah, okay, I guess, yeah. So this is a way to split money between payment pointers on a random basis. You have 3 people who want to get paid for a website. Let's say in this example, the Jedi Order have somehow made a deal to show a film by the Force on the Galactic Empire's website. Somehow they're all collaborating. Let's not go into the nitty-gritty of how they pulled it off, but they're collaborating and they've agreed that they're going to split the money 3 ways, anyone who comes to the website. And so you would put, I'm going to try this pointer, you put in the header of your website the 3 payment pointers, and you say, yeah, you pay them a third each. And anyone who comes to this site, they've got a 1 in 3 chance of paying one of these payment pointers. This is great if you've got 1 million visitors to your site. That's quite a successful, it's going to work. It's going to balance out 33% each. If you've got 10 visitors to your site and the film's 2 hours long, well, firstly, 10 doesn't divide into 3. So one of these guys is going to get less than the others. But also it's randomness. So there's a total chance that the Jedi Order get, I don't know, 2 views, the Force get 8 views, the Galactic Empire don't get any, and then they send in their lawyers and TIE fighters, and it all gets really messy. Like, it's random. You don't know if you can predict it. So we started thinking, what is the other ways you could do this? And yeah, robo-lawyers. Maybe number 5, maybe Johnny 5 could come and solve this all for us and start paying out money automatically. I was like, someone must have written this. So I kind of started doing the reading. I mean, obviously, smart contracts, we all know about smart contracts. Nick Szabo, 96, legal actions as code. Also in 96, Ian Grigg came up with Ricardian contracts. So they're not the same, obviously. Smart contracts are implemented at point of transaction. Ricardian contracts are more like describing documents, but the key thing is they've got to be human readable. This was quite appealing to me, because if you want to go to a lawyer with a dispute around a smart contract, or a judge, they've got to be able to read it. Something that's both human and machine readable at least serves the purpose that a human can read it, and you can also feed it to a computer and make sure that it implements correctly. I think the only implementation that I know of other than this, and if there's more, please come and find me afterwards or say at the end, is the Accord project, which I think, they don't say it on the website, I think comes from Dan Selman. It definitely comes from Clause.io. And this is a Linux Foundation project to develop smart legal contracts. And they have 3 layers. They have a text, a model, they have the logic underneath. The thing is, this is way too complicated. All we really need to do is say, pay these people in this order, and do it in a way that anybody who can read a shopping list can understand. So we kind of conceived this idea of a revenue-sharing language that would be written using YAML, which I know isn't a super fashionable language. There's lots of problems with YAML. I can talk about the Norway problem all night. But it has the advantage that it's a bit easier to read for a lot of people than, say, JSON or XML. It's kind of, it doesn't have too many brackets. It doesn't have too many quote marks. So it's not for writing legal contracts. And that's one thing I want to say from the off. This isn't a replacement for a long legal contract explaining stuff. It is for writing repayment schedules that could be added to a contract. It's not the code for implementing the payout. It's the instructions that an RSL parsing code can use to make a payout. It's something that could be printed out on a piece of paper and stapled to the back of a contract, but you could feed it into a machine and it should pay out the revenue sharing agreement in the right order. It's hashed, obviously, to prevent alterations. So there's a very simple example there, but I'm going to sort of break that one down in a bit more detail. An RSL agreement has 3 parts. There's a header at the top. It's data for the whole agreement. Only really needs to have the name and the currency, but you can have a lot more stuff. The steps, these are then paid out sequentially. So the structure of it, you basically, you have a step, then another step, and then another step. And then inside each step, you're going to have pays. And the pays are paid out concurrently, and the steps are paid out sequentially. And this allows you to do 2 types of payout. A fixed sum, which is effectively going to, we'll show this in a demo hopefully, but a fixed sum will pay out a pari passu type payout, and a percentage sum will pay a pro rata type payout. These are 2 different types of payouts that are used in lots of kind of financial settlements, particularly in film, but I think in other sectors as well. These all go together to describe the way you want to structure a revenue sharing agreement for a film, or for anything. So, you know, the sort of motivation, I guess, is it increases transparency and trust. If I'm saying, hey, my new record is going to give all the proceeds to charity, but in the back of my mind, I know that I first have to pay my hosting costs, I have to pay the studio time, I have to pay the band members. I can declare that publicly, so you don't later go say, I thought you were giving all the proceeds from your record to charity, and I say, well, I had loads of debts that I had to settle first, obviously. You know, also for crowdfunding and patronage promises, where you say, give me all this money, and I promise I'm going to do this with it, you could be quite clear. I'm going to do this with it, and these are the people who are going to get paid. The other area where transparency, trust helpful, I think, is when you're collaborating with people you don't yet know, and you want some kind of way to just say, okay, we're on the same page. Obviously, the obvious one in all the discussion about financial inclusion is most people cannot afford an accountant or a lawyer, and they certainly can't afford an accountant and a lawyer to chase stuff down. I mean, the chasing stuff down bit we're not really going into, but at least getting an agreement that you both agree on, you know, that includes probably the majority of people in the creator economy. Includes stuff where the amount's just too small. It's like $5. Is it worth bringing in a lawyer? No, you know. Or stuff where you don't know if it's worth it yet, like the great song we'll all sing in the bar tonight that we'll split 50-50. It also can maybe widen revenue participation. So this is kind of one of those, and if this works, then parts of the whole concept. But by automating the structuring of these, you could then say, well, I'm hosting my film on your website. Someone then shares it somewhere else. Someone then remixes it. Someone then choreographs a dance. At various steps of the value chain or of the distribution of that, there's lots of people making money, advertisers. Maybe the different people who are participating along that step also could be participating in that monetization. And maybe it could automate that process in a clearer and more transparent way. So the tool set we built around this, the first thing is Cascade. So RSL is the syntax. Cascade is the WYSIWYG builder. We started just doing a very simple JavaScript native version, and then the guy Rich Lott, who was doing the testing, they said, okay, this should be re-implemented in Svelte. And yeah, I'm going to show this in a moment. I'm having it's interesting because the fonts have completely changed in the translation from one system to another. So yeah, CiviSplit then is the implementation of a cascade builder. So the cascade is used to build an RSL agreement. Anyone could implement that in their own system. And then we wanted to try and then save RSL agreements and then hook them into the Uphold API. We would have done it with GitHub if we'd had sufficient API access. I don't think it was built out at that time. But this is built on CiviCRM. CiviCRM is, I don't know, does anyone here know CiviCRM? So it's an open source CRM. It's a non-profit CRM used quite widely by the non-profit sector. It's got about 11,000 installs in it. It's got a pretty powerful API. It integrates with Drupal and WordPress and Backdrop, but it's old. It's like a PHP framework, so it's sort of, and it's been around for a long time, but it does things like payment handling, contact management, messaging. It's got a very, very good developer ecosystem, and it itself is non-profit. And its origin story is fun, but I won't talk about that. I've only got 8 minutes left, and I've got to do the demo. So CiviSplit Agreement Builder creates and saves RSL. CiviSplit Processor checks the balance and calculates what's owed. And then, yeah, then you can create payment processes that integrate with different APIs to then basically save each RSL agreement with a payment pointer. That can then be related to a sub-account on whichever payment network, so then money can go in, and then the processor part will check the balance, see what's owed, and pay it out accordingly. Okay, so time for the walkthrough, hopefully. So this is Cascade Svelte just running in the wild. It's available if you want to download it on lab.openvideo.tech. That's the description of RSL there, but yeah, you can also download it's all GPL too. So if I clear this, I'm going to just create an agreement for a film collaboration between two people who are trying to monetize their work online. So you obviously set the currency. The decimal separator is because a lot of the world uses commas as decimal separators. So Japan uses no decimal separator. There is no decimal for stuff that's in yen. So we wanted to make sure it was international. You don't need to add anything more than that, but you could add a payment pointer, or that could be added later. And then you start adding a step. So so a fixed payout, you wouldn't have a cap to that, and you would just be saying and you would add another. You kind of get the picture. So you basically you build them out, and you've got warnings on the right telling you that you're not doing it right. And the second you do it right, it starts to build your RSL out. If we add now a percentage step, we also have ratio, because if you had 3 percentage payouts, you try and split. We get back to the thing that there's got to be a remainder. You want to split something 3 ways equally. You'd have 33.33333% recurring. In that situation, or anything where there's a recurring number, you would want to use a ratio. But if I do a percentage payout, and I'll put on a cap, which basically means we'll pay out this percentage until this cap is reached. And I don't know why I just used Bob and Susie. I realized that I didn't show the slide which had the characters that I was going to build this. I sort of jumped ahead because I saw the time. So we've got the ILP address, and then obviously you could use other payment pointers or other addresses. And if this doesn't add up to 100%, the system will tell me off. So I'm going to quickly add that in there. And the key thing here is obviously, because of the cap, the payment processor, when it reads this, will stop. It will first pay off the debts of $400, and then it will split the next $1,000 50-50. But if I swap these over, so if I put, I have to save that. If I put this here, you see we have a problem. We split it all 50-50. We hit the cap of 1,000, and we never get onto this stage of paying off the debts. So RSL has its own logic. You have to do things in a certain order and do things in a certain way. And whatever is passing it has to be able to interpret that logic. Okay, so this is the Civi split suite. So I've got running here the agreement builder. I'm going to just create a new agreement. I mean, I can also just show you, once an agreement's in here, it's then got reporting associated with it. But I've got 3 minutes. I might just try and create an agreement. Does anyone have an agreement like that they want to throw at me, and I'll try and quickly write it in? Save me coming up with really boring names and trying to stretch my imagination at this point of the day. Okay, I'm going for the wild card then. The creation of DNA, commercial exploitation. Yes, so add a step, payoff costs. What have we got? So add pay, Rosalind Franklin. She was always buying lunch. Oh no, I put lunch here. I could put lunch here. I have to say how much the lunch was. It was 50 quid. And because this is built in Civi, the payment pointer is stored on Rosalind Franklin's record. You could build this in your own system and store the payment pointer however you wanted, but that's just how we're doing it here. I'm going to add James Watson. He is buying dinner, and that's 100. And then you've got Francis Crick. He's buying something else. And there we've got the cost, and then we're going to add a step here, and the commercial. So let's say split the rest, percentage, World Health Organization. Yeah, there we go. And maybe they take a little bit for the NHS at the same time. So we save that. We save that. And at the moment, if I just click Save Draft Agreement, we've got an error. Step 1 is missing a type. Okay, so I have to come back here and select the type. It's a fixed payout step. Now I can save it. You can see the agreement. So if I click Save Draft Agreement, I can still keep editing this, sharing it with everybody until everyone's happy with it. When I click Generate Final Agreement, that locks the agreement. And at this point, it can't be changed anymore. It's been hashed, as you can see here. And this hash will resolve as a URL. You can see it up here, so other people can show it and view it and share it. And now we can see, you can see I tested this earlier, DNA commercial exploitation just been generated, and we have a report, and so far, yeah, nothing's been paid back yet. About 13 seconds, so I'll just have to show you one I made earlier. Yeah, so then obviously as you start paying money in, you then get them being paid out, and here you actually get a pari passu payout and a pro rata payout. The fixed and the percentage. But if you want to see more, then just come and say hello to me after the show. Thank you very much.